Imagine this. It's recess at school, the oval is full of kids playing footy, laughter echoes across the yard, teachers are watching from the sidelines. Then suddenly, the noise changes, students start screaming, pointing, shouting in panic, and when you look up you see it, a metallic disc, silently hovering above your school. Within hours, men in dark suits appear, warning everyone to stay silent, threatening anyone who dares to speak. This happened in Melbourne, in 1966, at Westall High School. 300 witnesses saw the impossible, and for nearly 60 years, the truth has been buried. Was it a secret experiment, or something not of this world? Stick with me, and if you love uncovering the stories they tried to erase, make sure you subscribe now, because what you're about to hear will change the way you see history. On April 6, 1966, Clayton South in Melbourne was just another suburb. Quiet streets, families getting on with life, kids at school. It was autumn, the sky was clear, the kind of day where nothing unusual should happen. At Westall High School and the nearby primary school, around 300 people went about their routine. Teachers patrolled the yard, students laughed with friends, the air filled with that carefree energy of youth. But what was about to unfold would transform this ordinary school day into one of the most extraordinary mysteries in Australian history. What sets Westall apart is not just the sheer number of witnesses, it's the context. This wasn't someone spotting a strange light out in the bush. It wasn't a shaky photograph with no one to back it up. This was hundreds of Australians, children, teachers and locals, all in broad daylight, all describing the same thing. And yet, most people in Australia have never even heard of it. Ask around and you'll find silence. That silence isn't an accident. It was manufactured. It started with a boy named Terry Peck, a Year 9 student. He was by the school fence when something caught his attention. Hovering in the distance, above an open paddock known as the Grange, was a strange metallic object. "Look up there," he shouted, and dozens of heads turned. What they saw was unlike anything they'd seen before. It was disc-shaped, silver grey with a small dome on top, perfectly smooth, no rivets, no seams, no wings, and it was utterly silent. Students rushed to the fence line, shouting, laughing nervously, some frozen in shock. One girl collapsed in fear. Joy Clark, only 11 at the time, remembered it vividly. It looked like two dinner plates stuck together, but it moved in ways nothing else can. The object hung motionless for a few moments, then darted sideways in a flash, stopping instantly in mid-air. Then it zipped the opposite direction, then back again. It was flying like gravity didn't matter. From the staff room window, science teacher Andrew Greenwood and his colleagues watched in disbelief. He later said, "I've seen jets, helicopters, all sorts of aircraft. This was something else. The way it skipped through the air, it was like watching a stone skimming across water." Then the craft began to descend. Slowly, it dropped lower and lower over the Grange. The paddock was just across from the school, and the children, driven by curiosity, climbed over the fence and ran toward it. Teachers shouted desperately, "Get back here! Don't go near it!" But the kids didn't stop. Those who got closest later described feeling heat radiating off the air, like opening an oven door. Their skin prickled, sweat beaded, even though the weather was cool. And beneath the craft, circles of flattened grass began to appear, perfectly round, scorched patches as if something impossibly heavy and hot had pressed down. Then just as suddenly as it had come, the craft shot upwards into the sky, disappearing in seconds. When the children and teachers reached the site, they found 5 circular marks in the grass, each about 3 meters across. The grass inside yellowed, bent and dead. The soil underneath was hard-packed, still warm to the touch. Some who touched it swore their hands tingled for hours. A few reported headaches, nausea or dizziness after being near the marks. Local photographer James Kibble snapped photos of the strange impressions, but those photos never surfaced. Witnesses later said they were confiscated. The next day, trucks arrived. Workers dug up the scorched patches, replaced the soil and the grass. By the time the week was out, the paddock looked ordinary again, as though nothing had ever happened. If this really was just a weather balloon, why erase every trace? Why remove the soil, the grass, the photographs? The effort to cover up seemed far greater than the supposed explanation. The following morning, an emergency assembly was called. 300 confused students and teachers packed into the gymnasium. At the front stood Principal Frank Samblebe, flanked by several men in dark suits. They were introduced as government officials. None carried identification. Samblebe's voice shook as he addressed the crowd. "Yesterday's incident did not happen," he declared. "Anyone caught spreading rumors will face immediate suspension. Teachers, your jobs are at risk." Afterwards, students were pulled from class one by one, interrogated by these men. They seemed to know everything: names, addresses, even family details. The message was clear: stay silent. One boy recalled, "They told me if I spoke to the press, my family would regret it. I believed them." Teachers were also threatened. An English teacher was told her career depended on her silence. Others were warned their teaching licenses would be revoked. By the end of the week, the lively chatter about UFOs had vanished. Children who had been excited to share what they saw suddenly refused to talk. Teachers, too, closed their mouths. The story was buried before it even began. The official story was that it had been a weather balloon, but balloons drift with the wind. They don't hover motionless, dart sideways, or leave scorched earth behind. Another explanation was that it was secret military technology, and it was the Cold War era after all. But who would test classified aircraft above a suburban school in full daylight with hundreds of witnesses? In 1967, physicist Dr. James McDonald traveled to Melbourne to investigate. His conclusion was clear. The craft described by Westall witnesses displayed flight characteristics inconsistent with any known aircraft of that era or of this one. So, what was it? For years, witnesses kept silent, afraid of ridicule or punishment. But on the 40th anniversary, in 2006, dozens of former students and teachers reunited. For many, it was the first time they dared speak. Their stories matched almost perfectly, despite the decades apart. Terry Peck broke down during an interview. "For 40 years I carried this secret. People laugh at UFO stories, but we know what we saw." Joy Clark revealed drawings she had made as a child, matching the descriptions of dozens of others. Dr. Richard Haynes, a former NASA scientist, studied their accounts. He said, "When independent witnesses, decades apart, describe the same details, you must take it seriously." And yet, official Australian government files remain sealed. Freedom of information requests are denied. The silence continues. The Westall UFO incident is not just about a flying saucer. It's about truth, power, and control of history. 300 Australians witnessed something impossible. Their stories have remained consistent for 60 years. Physical evidence was erased. Children were threatened. Teachers silenced. Think back to your own childhood, when an adult told you something you knew wasn't true. That frustration, that burning sense of injustice. Now imagine carrying that for a lifetime. Whether it was secret technology, something extraterrestrial, or something beyond imagination, one fact remains. Something happened at Westall High School. Something important enough that someone in power wanted it erased. If this story opened your eyes to one of Australia's most buried mysteries, hit like now so more people can discover it. Subscribe and ring the bell, because here we tell the stories they don't want told. Share this video with your mates, because silence only wins if we let it. And to my Aussie viewers, why do you think this case never made it into our school books? Comment below. Your voice matters. Some mysteries are too important to stay buried, and Westall is one of them.